Over the last 5 years, I've tried an endless amount of automation softwares designed to save me time, but unfortunately most have left me feeling more stressed. When I was 17, I launched my first business, and ever since then I have been obsessed with finding the best automation, the best productivity, and the best technology to run my businesses. Within the first 2 years of business, from the age of 17, I was able to earn my first £100,000 online. And to do this, I was a solo business. I did everything inside the business. So it eventually became my mission to find the best tools to save me time and improve my productivity. And one of the biggest movers for me in my business was asking myself a simple question. What am I actually doing day to day? And a lot of the tasks that came back were tasks that really weren't going to drastically move my business forwards. They weren't tasks that were going to generate me more leads, improve client satisfaction. They weren't tasks that were going to stand my business in a better position in the next month, year, and 2 years. So I followed a simple framework, and this is the framework that I suggest you follow to go from busy to productive. The first step is essentially to make a list of all of the tasks that you perform throughout your week. Next to each task, write in the amount of time that each task takes you. Alongside this, you need to write out all of the steps that you take when following this task. This will essentially allow you to audit your tasks throughout the week, what is taking the most amount of time, and what tasks can be automated, or what tasks would need to be delegated to a potential staff member. And when we look at delegating and automating, it would make a lot more sense to automate first and delegate second. Automations, once set up correctly, aren't something that require a huge amount of time and input, whereas a staff member requires training. They might be sick, they might go on holiday, whereas automations have a lot lower cost. They run 24/7 and they shouldn't need to be touched once they've been set up correctly. A lot of business owners think the solution to all of their problems is getting more leads and making more sales, but a lot of their problems start deep within their business. Your business is not ready to scale unless you have control over your finances. And having control and clarity over the money coming in, the money going out, essentially all of the numbers in your business, is the most important thing you can initially get in place before you look at scaling and adding lots more data on top. So this is essentially the free software, the free system that we use and I use in all of the businesses to essentially get clarity across payments across the board. And this is essentially Zapier, and you can use the free account of Zapier. So what I'm going to do is jump into my laptop and walk you through the whole process so you can follow along step by step. Zapier is essentially an incredible tool that allows us to connect numerous softwares together. So the best way to think of Zapier is you have software A over here and software B over here. We want software A to work in sync with software B. So we need to build a bridge between them. And Zapier is essentially that bridge to bring numerous softwares together. And the cool thing is, it's very simple to use, and it's just in a logical step-by-step process. So inside Zapier, we can essentially create what are called Zaps. Zaps are basically automations. And at the top of this, we create what is called a trigger. What do we want to trigger this automation? So when X event happens, it does this. In this case, we want to look at managing your finances. And generally, there's going to be two areas where businesses lose out on finances. The first one is around payment tracking, so failed payments and cancelled payments. And the second one is around payment disputes. Now, generally, you probably won't have too many payment disputes in your business, but naturally it's something that as your business scales, obviously there's more chance of having payment disputes if you're running things on a bigger scale compared to having less payments coming through. And obviously throughout your process and throughout your product, you'll obviously have a clear system to deliver things. And as you create more automations and create more systems, you'll most likely have less payment disputes because you'll have a clear journey that you take clients through. But we still want to allow you to keep on top of that if they do happen. So you're making sure that you're understanding why they're happening, because a big thing here is we scale businesses based off data, not just off decisions. So if we can understand why they're happening, we can put something in place to stop that happening. Business is essentially just problem solving. A problem happens, we find a solution, it's fixed. Nothing is unsolvable. It just needs the right thought process behind it. So essentially in Zapier, we create a trigger. So we can create a trigger. And you'll see here that you now essentially have a long list of different softwares that you can put in as the trigger. In this case, we can choose Stripe. Generally, you'll be using Stripe as your payment processor compared to other different softwares. I would always suggest using Stripe. It's generally going to be the better option compared to, say, PayPal or Go Cardless. Stripe has a lot more third-party integrations, so as you grow, it's going to integrate better, and it also works incredibly well with handling payments abroad. Yes, of course, they take a percent, but the thing that you have to realize with business is you're buying back your time. You're buying back your time by giving Stripe a percentage of the payment. That gives you all this time. Then that time means you can put it into something else that's going to make way more money than if you did that manually. And a big thing here is the fact of peace of mind. As your business grows, the more things you have in your head, the less high-level thoughts you can create. The less high-level thoughts you can create, the less your business is going to grow. So as a trigger, we essentially want to select Stripe. And if we click here, we have a long list of different things that we can set in Stripe as the trigger. For example, if someone cancels a subscription, if someone's payment fails, if there's a new charge, a new customer, a new dispute, a new invoice, you have all these different options that you can select. So in this case, we could select failed payment. So when there's a failed payment in Stripe, it then does this outcome. So all you would then do is you would click sign in and there'll be a pop-up on the screen. You would follow the steps to just simply log in with your Stripe account, and that will then connect it to Zapier. I'm going to pause this, connect my Stripe account, and continue on with the steps. Now, you'll see my face is looking extra large here because I'm covering confidential information. So what you'll see is once you connect your account, you will then get taken to a screen that looks like this and you can test the trigger. I would select clicking test trigger and this will pull through a recent example. So as we're using the failed payment automation, here essentially what will happen is it will pull through a recent failed payment. You would click test trigger and it will pull through an example. Then the next step, you would then essentially click on continue. When you click continue, it will then essentially take you to the next step. That next step is where we select the action. So what is the action that we want to happen? So every time there's a failed payment, what do we want to happen after that? So for example, for us, we post everything into Slack. I would suggest using Slack as opposed to just an email because as you scale, it builds a system. That system means in Slack, you can create channels. You can create different channels in Slack. So you can have one for finances, you can have one for coaching, you can have one for onboarding, you can have all these different channels, right? And then what it essentially means is you can add staff members into those channels. Even if it's just you in that channel for now, that's absolutely fine because as you grow and you then eventually bring someone in to manage this, you can add them in and then you can be less involved in using that channel. You can even bring yourself out of it. I would suggest staying in it because you keep your finger on the pulse with finances. For example, we have a team member in our business who manages all the finances. I'm just in the Slack channel with them, but they manage everything and I just then keep my finger on the trigger as to what's really going on in the business. Because what we want to do is we want to get you in a position where you're not doing everything, but you're just having an understanding of what's going on and your fingers on the pulse a little bit. Then you can select that. What you can see here is, again, we can select the actions. So what do we want to happen? Well, what we can do is we can add a reminder, we can create a channel, create a private channel. What we want to do is we want to scroll down. When you scroll down, you have send a channel message or send a direct message or send a private channel message. You would use a private channel message. Essentially what this means is we want to put everything into a channel instead of direct messages because there's a big reporting channel. We don't just want it to just send to the finance person in control as a DM because it gets messy. You want clear channels for everything. Your business needs to be streamlined. If your business is not systemized and streamlined, your head is not going to be. If your head isn't, your business won't scale. Because if you can't think and forward plan for your business and be a leader, your business won't grow. So we want to post it into a channel. Again, you can sign in to Slack. I'm going to pause that and log in. Now, once connected to Slack, you will then be taken to this step and we can essentially configure the automation. So if you were to click here, you will then have a drop down of all of the channels in your Slack account. So you can then simply select one of the channels here, and then it means that it will post that message into there. What we can then do is we can actually write out the message. So what is it that the message that we want to post in there? And you will notice if you click this plus icon, I can't click it because it will pull through confidential information. It will pull through all of the examples from step 1 and it will say name, email, phone, etc. You can then essentially just come in and you can click name and you can then write in failed payment. And then it means that is essentially called a custom field. That custom field will update every time there's a failed payment. So if my payment fails, it will say George failed payment. If Joe's, it will say Joe failed payment. It then makes it super specific and you can keep on top of whose payments are failing. You can then even include, when you click here, there'll be an option for amount and it will include the amount. So you can then see how much is failing. What we can do is we can send it as a bot or not. I would just send it as a bot because then the team knows it's automated and it's coming from Zapier. You can add in icons for the bot. It doesn't really need to happen. There's better things to worry about in your business than adding in an icon for a Slack automation. Include the link to the Zap. No, it just adds unnecessary information. Auto expand links. No, adds unnecessary amounts of content into the channel. Link usernames and channel. Yes, it means if you tag people, they'll get notified. And then send as a channel message, yes, because we're posting into a channel, we want it to be notified. You'll then be able to press continue. You could test it, it would send through a test, and then you can literally publish. Now, what we can essentially do here is we can then change the trigger, right? So we've chosen failed payment. We could then essentially backtrack, and I'm going to pause this and pull it up. So when clicking back onto the failed payment, we can select different triggers. So we can choose cancel subscription, we can choose a new dispute. And then what this essentially means is we can build out all these different automations, which will just keep our finger on our pulse on the trigger, our finger on the trigger. There we go, we got there in the end. So we have a perspective as to what is going on. It allows you to understand and see your business without being in your business. You're currently sat in your business here, working. If we get you up top here and you look over it, that's how your business will scale. Now, initially, most businesses have an incredibly high profit margin, and the biggest thing that tends to eat into this profit margin is software. And all these different softwares add up inside your business, and eventually you get to a point where you're not sure which automation software and which productivity softwares you're actually using. And the one problem that I faced when using numerous different softwares in our business was the fact that all of these different softwares ended up costing more as your business grew. You had more contacts on your email list, you sent more emails, you had more leads. All of these costs then added up as your business grew, and I thought it didn't really make sense. It didn't really make sense spending more and being penalized for using the software more. From my perspective, it makes sense for a software to incentivize you to use it more. And that's essentially where we created the Systemize to Scale CRM as a software which generally halves the software cost for the majority of businesses that use it, and it doesn't penalize you as you grow. So this is essentially the software that we use to scale our business, and I'm going to jump into my laptop and walk you through it too. Now, the goal of the Systemize to Scale CRM is essentially to bring everything together. If you think about it, your business is running right now, and there's lots of different moving parts, and there's always going to be moving parts in your business. But if we can reduce the moving parts as much as possible, there's essentially going to be way less operational drag. Operational drag is essentially the things that slow down your business whilst your business is running. For example, jumping into all these different softwares, there's more chance of things going wrong. Connecting all these different pieces of the puzzle, there's more things that go wrong. We want to create way less operational drag so your business is way simpler. If your business is way simpler, it's going to scale way quicker, and it's going to be a lot easier to scale. And it's going to be a lot easier for you to bring team members in that understand the business and can scale it too. So essentially the goal of this is one subscription that runs your whole business. It replaces Zapier, it replaces Calendly, it replaces Typeform, it replaces ClickFunnels, it replaces Kajabi, it replaces essentially every software that you're using in your business apart from a delivery software. If you're using, say, Trainerize or MyPT Hub or Kahunas or whatever PT software that you're using, this can then essentially replace that. So this can essentially run alongside that. So you keep that software, this replaces everything else, and it feeds into that. So a big thing for us to realize when it comes to scaling your business is we scale businesses based off data, not based off how we feel. And a big thing for that is essentially using the overview. The overview gives us a full perspective as to how the business is operating and running. You can come in at any point in time. You can change the time frame and you get perspective onto what's working and what's not working. That then allows us to make key decisions in our business. We can't make key decisions in our business if we don't have perspective on what we're making that key decision on. I can't come into the business and go, well, I don't think that staff member is working today. Let me get rid of them. I need to have data that's backed up week by week, and it's a trend, and I can go, right, that is trending in that direction. For example, that staff member is not performing, that staff member is performing. Let me reward that staff member. Let me have a conversation with that staff member. Or for example, the ads, they're not working in that audience, but they're working in that audience. Or that audience looks like it's working, but it's actually not converting. We need data to make decisions. But the thing is, I always feel that there's sometimes too much data, and too much data is often too overwhelming and too daunting. So we want clear data. Data that we can actually understand and use, simple data. Data that's taken and it's simplified that we can make decisions off. Secondly, we essentially want to bring an inbox in. An inbox is essentially where all our messages collate. So we've got all these different social media platforms and they collate into one place. What this then means, we can then create key trigger words based off people commenting, based off people DMing certain words. So then we can essentially start automating our lead acquisition, because what we can then do is we can put out content, we can put out ads that create traffic. We can get people to engage with that, so it does even better and ranks even higher on that social media platform's algorithm, but it also then gets these conversations to flow into our DMs. Secondly, so this then essentially replaces ManyChat if you're familiar with ManyChat. Then essentially what we want to look at is appointments. This then essentially replaces Calendly. It's a booking system, people book in for calls, it goes into your calendar, sends out all the reminders, exactly like that. Then we want to look at contacts. Contacts essentially then allows us to replace ActiveCampaign. Essentially all your contacts come into here, all your email contacts, phone contacts, and even social media contacts. And the cool thing with this is if a social media contact replies in a DM with their email, with their phone number, it will auto save in here and add them to your contact list. So you can then create emails, you can create phone number sequences, WhatsApp sequences, you can ring leads, you can essentially do everything off the back of that. A big thing here is businesses need data, as you will see I keep going on about, and we need a big lead list. The more people we get in front of, the more chance they are going to buy. So we need to save all of that data, and that's where the context comes in. Next, opportunities. We want clear pipelines that show us what's happening in the business. So essentially we want a pipeline to help us manage leads, so we can then see all our cold leads and see where they're organized, so we know what we need to do to move them along. And the way that a pipeline works, it starts on the left when the lead is at the worst stage. They might have, for example, just opted into a lead magnet. We need to get them through to the right where they essentially then book in for their call and they leave that pipeline, or they become a dead lead and they leave the pipeline. And this then shows you really simply that, right, okay, maybe you're in a conversation with a lead. Well, the next step is you need to ask some qualifying questions to then be able to offer them a call, to then be able to potentially follow up with them and then book them in for a call. It's logical. When that lead then books in for a call, we need a warm lead board, and this is essentially your sales board where your leads are automatically categorized if they schedule a call, if they no-show, if they cancel, and off the back of that, we have all the clear follow-ups for you. So we're pivoting out of you having to do all of this manually. It then means that you can then become a closer, or you can bring a closer in, and they're not having to send out all these emails and waste time on that. They can focus all their time on closing, and generating sales for the business. Then we want two boards to essentially allow you to manage clients. One that gives you, again, an overview and perspective as to what week the client's in. And then lastly, one that gives you perspective on how clients are performing, if they're green, amber, and red. And one that even sends out all your check-in reminders, and follow-ups, so that you're not having to do that. So you can just focus on coaching, and your coaches can focus on coaching rather than you having to do all the admin. Alongside that, we want perspective on payments. So you then essentially see everything that happens in Stripe all in here, so you're not having to log into different softwares. Emails and socials, one of the easiest ways for you to essentially double down and double or even triple your views is by simply repurposing the content that you post on one platform on another. You post on Instagram, well, at the same time you can schedule it on Facebook and TikTok and even YouTube, and then it will essentially post on all these different softwares for you automatically, so you're not having to do that. And then all your team members can do that too, so you can start scaling out across different platforms. Automations, this then essentially will replace Zapier. So exactly the same flow as Zapier, we've got a logical builder. Well, we can do all of that in here. And the cool thing with all of this is you don't get charged more based off your usage. We want you to use the platform as much as physically possible. So we're not going to penalize that like other softwares. We're going to have one flat fee that's probably half the cost of what you're paying for softwares now, if not more, and it stays the same. Websites and forms, here you can essentially build all your funnels. Just like in ClickFunnels, it's a logical builder, so you can build all of your funnels really simply in one place. You're not having to pay for other funnel builders and website softwares. Membership sites, probably a lot of people use School and Kajabi. This essentially replaces that. So you've got one hub here for everything. You can then build all your membership sites, you can build all your courses, all housed in one simple place. File uploads, you can upload files, data reporting, and then even our docs and bolt-ons, which essentially has all our resources that you could ever need to essentially use the platform. Obviously, alongside that, we have all the support that comes with it. But essentially, what we want to really think about is having one clear system, using all of the frameworks that we build for you. We'll obviously set this up and give you all the frameworks. So you then essentially have a process that you can follow and scale your business. Because scaling your business does not need to be complicated, because simple often scales way quicker. When you're looking to implement systems and automations into your business, you need to understand what problem is this actually going to solve. I speak to a huge amount of different business owners who are constantly looking at building new systems, building new automations, but it's essentially a form of procrastination that takes them away from the tasks that are actually going to move their business forwards. Because when you set up automations and systems, they should be set up once and they should have a clear purpose. That purpose should then be automated and it should then run. It shouldn't require any thought process, it shouldn't require any time, and you should then win back that time to spend in tasks and areas of your business that are going to move your business forwards more. So this is essentially the framework and steps that you can take to implement software and automations inside your business to save you time, to generate more sales, and to essentially build a business of freedom. So if you found this useful, make sure to drop me a subscribe, and as you're going through the steps, if you have any questions at all, simply leave them into the comments and I'll get back to you.